In San Francisco, and this is Bloomberg Technology. Coming up in the next hour, Facebook goes to war to try and save democracy. We go inside the social network's election war room, where employees are running interference on foreign and domestic attempts to undermine the vote. But will it be enough? Plus, India is the next battleground in the fight for e-commerce dominance as Amazon and Walmart fight to become India's top online retailer. How much will they lose in the process? And former Microsoft CEO Steve Ballmer is bringing tech to basketball. How the LA Clippers are using augmented reality to court more fans to the game. But first, to our top story. With the U.S. midterm elections now less than 3 weeks away, Facebook says it is on offense. In 2016, we now know Russian efforts to disrupt the presidential election reached 150 million people on Facebook and Instagram, and fake news ran wild. This year, the social network doesn't want a repeat. In addition to a safety and security team that's 20,000 strong, we got one of the first looks inside a new so-called war room to combat the war on democracy.
This is Facebook's election war room, the nerve center of the social network's election interference operations, where teams of engineers, cyber policy, and data specialists are patrolling for fake news, misinformation, and meddling.
What's happening in the war room right here, right now?
So right here, right now, we have experts from across the company. Data scientists are looking at dashboards and seeing, for example, if there's any kind of spike in content that could be related to voter suppression to prevent any of it from going viral.
The war room didn't exist in 2016. In fact, Facebook executives seemed to be in denial that the social network could have influenced the U.S. presidential election at all.
Personally, I think the idea that fake news on Facebook, of which it's a very small amount of the content, influence the election in any way, I think is a pretty crazy idea.
But in the last 2 years, it's become abundantly clear that Russia expertly weaponized Facebook with the express purpose of sending U.S. elections into turmoil. Facebook has apologized for not catching it and committed massive tech and human resources to combat it. But what Facebook calls coordinated, inauthentic behavior has continued, not just from Russia, but Iran. And with U.S. midterms just weeks away, Facebook says activity is ramping up, and the majority of it coming from inside the United States.
In order to manipulate public debate, first you have to understand the culture you're targeting, and there are always going to be more people inside a country that understand that than outside. We're talking volume, right? Obviously, the interference that comes from overseas can be particularly pernicious.
How?
Because there you have a foreign state that's looking to influence or manipulate or meddle in another country's public debate.
So at what point would Mark or Cheryl step in?
Part of what we've tried to do, particularly as we need to move into this period, we want to move very quickly, is we've pushed as much of the decision-making to the teams as possible. But obviously, there's an escalation chain in process and available so that when we need to move something up to Mark or Cheryl, we can do it quickly.
This effort expands across 24 teams around the world, now including former law enforcement, government, and security agency talent that's also monitoring Facebook Messenger, Instagram, and WhatsApp, not just ahead of the U.S. elections, but a presidential election in Brazil. And these mere mortals aren't alone.
Our investments in machine learning have actually allowed us to block fake accounts, usually even at the moment of creation.
Still, there's an indefinite amount of nuance when it comes to what kind of activity and content could breach Facebook policies. This week, the company said it would take down misinformation about how people can vote and whether their vote will count. But other types of voter suppression, like whether polling places are closed or, let's say, under threat by an active shooter, would be outsourced to third parties and downranked and potentially flagged if false. And lawmakers are watching.
I think that Facebook and the other social media platforms were slow to react to this. They were woefully unprepared during the last election as the Russians weaponized social media. They are slowly coming to realize just what a threat this is, what an attack it is on the democratic process. I welcome the reforms as they come. In the final analysis, it's going to be up to the American people to recognize this threat and be wary of anything like the posts that they've seen before, which are divisive or seem very unrealistic.
But expecting users to make that call may be equally unrealistic. The real problem, others say, may be the way Facebook itself operates, keeping users in their own social silos that only further divides.
We can't fix 2016, and that's not my goal. My goal in this whole thing is I believe that the advertising business model creates the wrong incentives for Facebook, and that essentially it forces them to use highly addictive technology and to basically push people to increasingly extreme positions. So polarization is good for their business. Anger and fear are good for their business.
Does it concern you at all that Facebook could be hurting democracy more than it's helping?
I think our goal and our responsibility is to ensure that we are helping democracy more than we're hurting. We're ready. That doesn't mean that there aren't going to be challenges. When you have malicious actors like this, there are always efforts. There are always going to be unexpected threats. There are always going to be challenges.
The question remains, will 2018 be different?
Now, the war room is already being put to the test in Brazil, which is in the midst of a presidential election. You saw Brazilian and American flags in that war room. And Facebook is using the word delighted to describe how efficiently they say it's performing. To talk about what's going down in Brazil and how the battle against fake news is being fought, I want to bring in Thay Nalon from Brazil. She's a journalist and the director of Aos Fatos, a Brazilian fact-checking startup. Its name means to the facts, and it is currently working with Facebook as a fact-checking partner. When Brazilians went to the polls over the weekend of October 7th, Aos Fatos says it debunked 12 rumors that combined for 1.7 million Facebook shares alone. Also with me here in the studio, who else but Bloomberg's Sarah Fryer, who of course covers Facebook. And Sarah, there's actually a situation rapidly developing right now where you have the left-wing candidate calling for an investigation into the right-wing candidate for deliberately running and deploying fake news, not just on Facebook, but on WhatsApp. What do we know?
So Haddad has been attacked by a lot of this fake news, this misinformation, and he's asking federal authorities to see if that is coming from Bolsonaro's campaign. And a lot of the venue for this kind of attack is on WhatsApp, which is, of course, the encrypted messaging platform owned by Facebook. And that's something important to think about here as Facebook deploys this war room, where they're trying to see these fake news trends and find reports about not just voter suppression, but hate speech and spam. WhatsApp is a harder platform for them to deal with because they can't see what people are sending each other.
Now, Thay, the initial election happened on October 7th. You know, we've heard about the violence. We've heard about the misinformation. You know, what was the election like from your perspective?
I think we had a very large scale of misinformation pieces. Fake news websites, but also images, videos, audios, any kind of media that was used in order to mislead electors from what is actual facts. We've seen that, as you said, during the weekend prior to the Sunday of the first round voting day, but we've seen that scaling up during the last 5 months. We have already debunked more than 100 pieces of misinformation since at least July. Most of them comes from the right-wing candidate Jair Bolsonaro, but also some of them comes from fans from Fernando Haddad. So it's not as if it is something that is a monopoly on the right wing, but we see it being scaled up to an industrial level from the right-wing party and Bolsonaro's campaign.
Now, Sarah, when you spoke to Facebook executives, they told you that they were delighted with their work in Brazil thus far, in part because they were able to identify some hateful content going viral towards the leftist candidate Haddad and take it down, right? Before it got too out of control.
Not just that leftist candidate, but after the polls closed on October 7th, they saw a lot of hate speech that was inciting violence directed toward the northeast region of Brazil, which went for Haddad, this region that is one of the poorer of Brazil. And they saw that the way that the war room works, they have representatives from all the different Facebook teams that have to work on this kind of task. They have operations, engineers, data science, policy. And so in that case, the data scientist was able to see this is the kind of content we're seeing, what's happening with it. The policy person was able to say this actually violates our rules. And then the operations people were able to go out and find all that content and take it down. And Facebook says one reason they're so delighted is that what would normally take them a few days to accomplish, they were able to accomplish there in 2 hours. Now, is that enough? I mean, there was so much. The volume of fake news on Facebook around this was just so heavy, as our fact-checking partners have said. And this is something that's happening on the Facebook platform, but on WhatsApp, it's basically invisible.
Now, Ty, we spoke to a U.S. congressman right there who said, at a certain point, it's up to users. They have to discern whether they believe these posts are true or false. Is it reasonable to expect that Facebook can really do all of this? And on the flip side, is it reasonable that users will be able to discern what's true and what's not?
Ideally, yes. I think that we have to tackle media literacy and empower people in order to fact check for themselves what's on the web. But let's be realistic. It's not as simple. We don't have a scale to do that. So that we have to be using technology in our favor. We see now that partnering with Facebook, it has some kind, it is not ideal still, but it has somehow stopped the spread of some misinformation on the platform. Meanwhile, this kind of misinformation, they migrated to WhatsApp, where it's much more difficult for people to fact check. In Brazil, we have another component that is WhatsApp, Twitter, and Facebook. They are free in the telephonical plan. So if you hire something on a plan on your phone, you receive free data to use WhatsApp, but not to access debunking and fact-checking websites. So that it's unequal. You can receive misinformation for free, but you can't fact-check them for free. In a poor country, when people have low levels of media literacy, it's really worrisome.
Right. Well, we are, of course, going to continue to follow in the days leading up to the runoff election, which is happening on October 28th. And then, of course, the U.S. midterm elections about a week after that. Ty Leland of Aos Fatos for us in Brazil. Thank you so much for joining us. And Bloomberg's Sarah Fryer here in San Francisco. Well, the digital payments giant PayPal reported third quarter net revenue of $3.68 billion, beating estimates. Strong performance in the quarter was boosted by Venmo, which handled almost $17 billion in the quarter, growing 78%. The company also announced a partnership with American Express, which will allow customers to use Amex rewards points at PayPal merchants. Still ahead, e-commerce giants Amazon and Walmart are after global expansion. Next up on the battleground, India. This is Bloomberg. It's been 5 years since Amazon launched in India and 2 since Prime made its debut in the country. But ask India's shopkeepers and store owners who Jeff Bezos is, and many won't be able to tell you. While Amazon is a household name in most places, the e-commerce giant is still struggling to win over the country's 1.3 billion people. In May, Walmart spent $16 billion to acquire Amazon's primary rival in India, Flipkart, while Alibaba has backed online retailer Paytm. For more, Bloomberg Senior Executive Editor of Global Tech, Brad Stone, you traveled to India for this story. Who's winning?
I think probably, both companies are doing well. It's such a, open frontier. You have tens, even hundreds of millions of people getting their first smartphones, coming online, for the first time, people in poverty moving into the Indian middle class. So there's a lot of opportunity. But these two companies are spending a lot of money, probably unprofitably, to get market share. Right now, we're right at the beginning of these, Flipkart calls it Big Billion Days. It's kind of their singles day before the Diwali buying season. They're spending a lot of money on promotions, trying to get customers.
What are they doing differently there than we might see here in the United States?
So much, because it's a completely different landscape. One thing they're doing, and it surprised me, instead of disintermediating middlemen, they're kind of empowering them. So you can go into actual stores in Bombay or Bangalore, and you sit down and somebody helps you surf Amazon.in, and then you order something, the package is delivered to the store, you can go and pay in cash. So they're really rethinking everything from the ground up.
How is the government handling it? I mean, because India is historically this place with so much bureaucracy, so many middlemen, so much red tape, that things move more slowly.
Right. Well, to simplify a complicated situation, there are limits on foreign investors coming in and being multi-brand retailers, like department stores, online or offline. And so what Amazon and Flipkart, now that it's owned by Walmart, do is they have marketplaces, but they also finance side companies to go and sell things on their own sites. And the new set of regulations might put more limits on that. Both companies are lobbying very heavily for a hands-off approach because they want to do more business in India.
Over time, which company do you think will have the upper hand?
So Walmart spent $16 billion to buy Flipkart last spring. Obviously a huge commitment. I think both are very unprofitable. We think Amazon lost about $2 or $3 billion in India last year. When you map it out for the next couple of years, Amazon's probably more likely to be willing to lose a lot of money in building, Walmart shareholders. Maybe they might get a little cool with it. So to the extent that this is continues to be an unprofitable market, Amazon, which has the stomach for that, probably has an advantage.
And doesn't Jeff Bezos really care about India personally? Like, this is one of his
We have an anecdote in the story that he went there a couple years ago, and he wanted to hand over an oversized check to Amit Agarwal, the head of the India division, on an elephant. And they couldn't find any elephants. All the elephants were busy in a religious ceremony, so he had to do it on a truck. He doesn't do that sort of thing. He is using his notoriety to build a business here. It shows how much he does care.
If only more Indians knew who he was. All right, Brett Stone, our global tech editor, thank you so much. Check that out in this week's edition of Bloomberg Business Week. Coming up, Goldman Sachs and Galaxy are betting big on crypto by pouring $15 million into the cryptocurrency custodian BitGo. We'll talk to the CEO of BitGo about its Series B next. This is Bloomberg. Goldman Sachs is getting deeper into Bitcoin. Goldman and a venture formed by one of its former partners, billionaire Mike Novogratz, are investing in cryptocurrency custodian BitGo. They put in about $15 million to the startup's latest round of fundraising. BitGo guards digital currencies for institutional investors. For more, I want to bring in BitGo CEO Mike Belshi. So, Mike, what do you get out of this investment from Goldman and Galaxy, aside from money?
No, actually, it wasn't about the money. It's much more about the strategic nature of this. So, institutional custody is something we've been talking about as a big missing piece. Today, most people are holding their assets on exchanges. That's not the same model we use with any other asset class, and yet that's what we do in crypto. So BitGo's been working on changing that infrastructure for some time. Goldman and Galaxy are coming in. They're looking for that as well. They scoured the landscape. They found us. I'm happy to work with them.
Can you just define what you mean by institutional custody clients?
Right. So when you think about custody for your own assets, that's your choice of what you do with your money. You can put it in your wallet, you can cash your paycheck, you can put it in your mattress, you can put it in your bank. It's up to you, it's your money. Nobody else cares. When it comes to institutions, they're holding other people's money. When you're holding someone else's money, we've always held a much higher bar for what those custodians are doing, right? We want to know that you're not going to cheat, you're not lying, you're audited, you've actually got the assets. So custodians help with that problem.
How many clients do you have at this point?
Over 300. We're a global firm, so there's over 100 exchanges around the world that use BitGo wallets. And then the latest form of the product around custodianship is really more about hedge funds and things like that.
Now, we've seen Goldman slowly increasing its commitment to Bitcoin after initial uncertainty. What does Goldman get out of this?
Goldman is a very different company, right? They've been the financial services powerhouse for decades, and their ability to move into this space requires a lot more than it does for the smaller companies. So it's going to take a while. They are a bank. They are under more regulatory scrutiny from a number of different regulators than BitGo is. So it's going to take them time to fully get in.
How much is your business compromised by just the amount of shady practices and misinformation in the industry in general?
Well, part of the challenge for the entire industry is to figure out how to get the word out that it's not just about that. We actually can create safe money. We have the best form of money ever created with digital currencies, and we can take that forward. So we are a regulated company, actually, out of the Division of Banking in South Dakota. We have all of the same rules in terms of customer identification, AML, KYC, et cetera, that any other custodian would be subject to that's holding other asset classes. We're doing that same thing for digital currencies.
Do you think the market's going to turn around? Is it low right now?
I think it's definitely low right now. There's no doubt it's going to turn around. The real question is when.
When? When do you think?
You know, I don't like to guess on that because you can be right, you can be wrong. It doesn't really matter. We're in this for the long term. The fact is that Bitcoin has opened our eyes to the idea that digital currency can change the way we move money. You can move money around the globe 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at almost no fee with no counterparty risk. And you've never had that before.
What's your objective? Would you sell the company? Would you sell it to Goldman?
We're trying to make an impact in the world, actually. I mean, it's not about sales. No, I don't want to sell it to Goldman. You know, the idea here is like we're building new product that's going to enable new things. We can change the way the financial system works, and marrying Silicon Valley with Wall Street, which is what we've kind of done here a bit, is going to allow us to learn from what they've been doing over the last decades, and then hopefully also bring some of the innovation that comes from Silicon Valley type companies.
All right, Mike Belshie, CEO of BitGo. Thanks so much for stopping by. Coming up, the LA Clippers are reinventing basketball, they say. How augmented reality and AI could change the way fans interact with the game and even bet on it. I'll speak to Clippers chair Steve Ballmer next. And Bloomberg Technology is live streaming on Twitter. Check us out at Technology, and be sure to follow our global breaking news network, TikTok, on Twitter. This is Bloomberg. Bloomberg Technology. I'm Emily Chang in San Francisco. Steve Ballmer is notorious for his enthusiastic speeches as the former CEO of Microsoft. Now he is bringing his passion for tech to the basketball court. As the owner of the LA Clippers, Ballmer is unveiling Clippers Court Vision, an augmented reality platform that puts fans in charge of their viewing experience. Court Vision, developed alongside video tech company Second Spectrum, uses a mix of machine learning, AI, and augmented reality to let viewers customize play, predict player moves, and estimate probabilities. Fans can toggle between coach, player, and mascot modes for different diagrams and camera angles. I sat down with Ballmer to discuss. Take a listen.
Day in and day out, the technology industry, like every other industry, has a key role in society, and some of it is all positive and goodness and innovation, and some of those things come with a downside. And you know, as the downsides get revealed, whether it was security issues in software a number of years ago, privacy, election manipulation, I don't think that the spirit of excellent innovation will be anything other than lauded, and yet the tech industry has to also take these bumps and bruises and serious requests for society to do better. So I wouldn't call it a once in a lifetime, but there will be excitement about tech, and there will be issues over which tech needs to show responsibility.
I know you're super pumped about this. You're pitching this as a revolutionary way to watch Clippers games, and that this puts the viewing experience in the hands of the viewer. How does it work?
Well, what we've done essentially with our partners at Second Spectrum, a very cool technology company here in LA, is applied artificial intelligence to watch, study the game, and then draw in real time automatically what's going on. So if you want to watch as a player would watch and see the probability that your teammates will be successful for a shot, if you want to see real time diagramming of plays, we provide you that. If you want various camera angles, you can get it that. If you want live commentating, you can. Computer-generated highlights that are available in near real time, the ability right from within either the website or within the applications to tweet things out. We provide all of that. That's in beta. The thing that is broadly available today, which is very exciting for people here in the Los Angeles market, is a set of augmented streams that do much of the things that I talked about, but which are available now on the Fox Sports app, and people can watch the game that way tonight.
So this is about courting the viewers of tomorrow, and the NBA skews younger. Who are you trying to attract with this?
Well, I think what we're really trying to do is take the fans first, the fans who are already excited about the game, and give them a way to get into the game even deeper. You know, in every business, I think one of the first things you have to do is feed your enthusiasts, and particularly since NBA fans tend to skew younger, we think we'll see great uptake by today's fan base. We also are building out interesting things to draw in people who know less about the game, and because this is essentially a software service, we'll continue to feed new products, new ideas into this thing with great regularity.
So, given that you are collecting all of this additional data, is this something that could also help the team win games?
Yeah, this is actually built off a set of technology that came out first in an analytics product. There are 6 cameras in the ceiling of every NBA arena. The software that we're talking about starts by looking at the floor, seeing every player, knowing where the ball's moving, the speed, and then there's a layer of so-called machine learning software that can tell you exactly that was this kind of pick and roll. Its success rate, likelihood to lead to a shot, a made shot is X. It's being defended in this way. All of the core technology then feeds a set of tools that the teams do use to improve the way they game plan. Product name Eagle, the Clippers were one of the first users of that product, again, from this company, Second Spectrum, here in LA.
Where does the tech go from here? For example, how could legalized sports betting be integrated into this platform?
Well, we have a platform in which you can show additional data real time in the game and in which you can interact. I think that makes it a great platform in which to support legalized sports betting, sports gaming when that comes on board. You may want to see fantasy points. You may want to see probabilities of certain things happening. There's a lot of things that might be legalized on which people can gamble. We can show those to you live on the screen, and with interactivity, there's a possibility for online gaming partners to work with us to augment the experience in that way.
It's going to be an interesting season. You've got LeBron going to the Lakers. How are the Clippers going to up their game with that on the other home team?
Well, I kind of love our team, I'll be honest. It is a very different team than last year. We have got guys back who were injured much of the season. We have a bunch of new players. We got some rookies. I love our team. I think it's very close-knit. It's consistent with what I want out of our team. Tough-minded, gritty folks who are really going to dive in and get things done. So I love our guys. I can't comment about other people's guys, but I got to tell you, nobody's going to want to play us night in and night out.
Former Microsoft CEO and current LA Clippers owner Steve Ballmer. Well, the Wall Street Journal has reported that secretive data mining company Palantir is considering an IPO. The company, co-founded by Peter Thiel, has reportedly been valued at $41 billion, double its previous valuation. According to the Journal, the company is in talks with Credit Suisse and Morgan Stanley and could go public as soon as the second half of 2019. Well, you've heard of matchmaking, but imagine a job finding humans their robot BFF. We take a look next. And later in the program, succession at Square. Jack Dorsey's top number 2 is gone. What's next for the e-payments company after losing CFO Sarah Friar? This is Bloomberg. Matchmaking between two friends is hard enough. Imagine trying to pair someone with a robot companion. That's exactly what a researcher here in San Francisco is trying to do, starting with the elderly. Bloomberg's Aki Ito investigates.
Meet Betty. She lives by herself, but for the last few months, she hasn't been alone.
LQ, tell me a joke.
Did you hear about the claustrophobic astronaut?
No.
Apparently, he just needed a little space.
Most technology isn't made for 93-year-olds. But this woman is making sure that this particular robot is.
LQ, who are you?
She's researching the way we interact with machines. And if she has her way, robots will soon be a trusty companion for all of us.
My name is LQ. How can I help you?
My name is Danielle Ishak, and I am a human-robot interaction researcher.
Danielle works for an Israeli startup called Intuition Robotics. Its U.S. office is here in downtown San Francisco.
Hello?
Hey Danielle, it's Aki.
Come on in.
The company is funded by a couple big names like Samsung and Toyota. Full disclosure, Bloomberg's venture capital arm is an investor too.
This is LQ.
Can I take her out for a spin?
Please.
LQ, tell me what you can do.
I am a proactive social robot designed for older adults. I can connect you to your family and friends, and even play music.
These features might remind you of the Amazon Echo, but you'd be missing the point if you compared her to a smart speaker. She's not meant to just be useful. She's meant to be a companion.
Why don't you take a break and have a drink?
And that's why she has a head that can nod and make other subtle gestures you might expect from a pet.
Through our research with older adults, we're finding that almost on a daily basis, we see that somebody tells her that they love her.
Really?
Or that they like her.
Like,
or that they miss
literally,
her.
I love you?
Mm-hmm. They'll also tell her, I'm depressed, or I'm lonely. They'll open up to her in a way that they might not necessarily open up to a human.
LEQ isn't on sale yet. But a prototype is already in the homes of about a dozen early testers who live in the Bay Area.
LQ, tell me what the weather is today.
Danielle's job is to figure out what's working and what's not.
Sorry, please rephrase your request.
And she does that by visiting each of her testers twice a month.
How important are these visits to your job?
They're critical. We're building a product for people who we are not. I'm not a senior, and how could you know how to design for somebody if you don't do research? Because otherwise, you would just be designing in the dark.
Danielle's research has helped shape every little facet of LEQ, from the way LEQ moves to the way she talks.
It's a very special job, and it can be really hard, and it can be really frustrating, but at the end of the day, it's incredibly rewarding. And I think the most rewarding part about it is when I see the joy on the users' faces, like that they saw their feedback turned into something real.
Today, we've driven east of San Francisco to go see one of Danielle's research participants.
LQ, tell me something interesting.
Did you know that Ronald Reagan was a lifeguard in high school and saved 77 people's lives?
Now see, this is where a conversation is. She should open up and I should say, no, I did not know that. I expect her to be able to continue a conversation for at least a couple of comments.
Yeah. And why is that?
Why?
Yeah.
Because that's companionship.
By 2050, almost 500 million people are going to be 80 or older. And if current trends continue, more and more are going to be like Betty, living alone. Danielle knows that no robot could ever offer the same companionship that a real human could. And the key to her work is to embrace that very limitation of machines.
Robots should help humans do what they love, help humans interact with more humans, help humans in general. Not pull humans away from humans, not take humans' jobs and leave humans without purpose.
Whether it's in our workplaces or in our homes, robots are soon going to be everywhere. And it's up to Danielle to make sure this robot-filled future leaves us just a little better off.
So don't be afraid. And if you are afraid, come and join us, because I promise it's a friendly place.
Bloomberg's Aki Ito there. Coming up, Square. The company mixes old school with the new, how it aims to be your business's one-stop payment and inventory shop. Next. This is Bloomberg. Square is looking to take on old school credit card machines with a new device it calls the Square Terminal. The terminal lets sellers ring up sales and process any type of payment and print receipts from one device, a device they can pick up and take to any part of their store. It also has software that lets merchants access inventory, create discounts, and send invoices. We sat down with a man who leads Square's hardware development, Jesse Doragusker, to get the scoop on the new machine and how the company will move forward following the recent departure of CFO Sarah Fryer, who went on to become CEO of another company called Nextdoor. Take a listen.
Sarah is a tremendous executive and also a really good friend. And we're really happy for her. She's doing something she's always wanted to do. We know she's going to be great in the role, and we'll be following her. We have a lot of powerhouses around the table on the executive team, and although there is a role to fill, we feel really confident in who we have around the table.
We've talked about the strong bench at Square on the show many times, including people like you that said when this news was announced, we saw a sell-off that has recovered, but investors are asking who is going to fill her shoes.
Of course, we're going to start a search for a CFO. And we expect there'll be a lot of interest in it. David Veneer, who is our lead independent director and former CFO of Goldman Sachs, is going to be leading that search, and we have a lot of confidence that we'll be able to fill it.
So what impact do you think this will have on the company and on the executive team as it is?
We feel really great about our purpose and our momentum and the people we have around the table, so I don't think we're going to miss a beat.
You're announcing Square Terminal.
That's right.
New Square Terminal. What's game-changing about this, and how is it different from the previous hardware register?
Yeah, it's a great new terminal that combines our great payments business, but also hardware that is fresh and new and has all the technology that people need. There are millions of terminals out in the world in use today, here in the US and worldwide, and they are built on top of payment systems that don't treat them fairly, and they're made of hardware that are generally lackluster and not very forward-looking. This is going to fix all of that.
You are the hardware lead. You've worked at Square for 7 years. You worked at Apple for 8 years before that. What did you bring of your Apple sensibilities to Square?
I learned a lot at Apple. I learned from some of the best. You learn to understand what excellence really means and really try to get there. You learn to value and scrutinize execution, because if you can't execute, none of it really matters. And finally, I learned that you have to identify the pieces of technology that will really affect the customer experience and the kinds of things that you want to control end-to-end. For Apple, that's many, many things. For Square, that's our payments infrastructure, the way we move money, the embedded software that runs our payment system, and the operating system that runs products like Square Terminal and Square Register.
So that said, like smartphones, there's a lot of competition. And as you mentioned, there's so many different kinds of registers. They are very different. But how does this stand out from what's already on the market?
We really benefit from integration. So the payment service is provided by the same people that make the point of sale app, is made by the same people that make the connections to MasterCard, Visa, Amex, Discover. We also have a great relationship with Apple and Google to accept Apple Pay and Google Pay as soon as they came out. So we can make something that's really integrated end to end and provides a customer experience that's seamless, not stitching together a variety of suppliers.
How do you think this is going to expand the type of customers that use Square?
It will address a very broad base, but one segment that has really been out of reach for us are businesses, big businesses that have a very specific point of sale, like a dentist or an optometrist. Square's not going to make a point of sale for them. And all of those businesses are really entrenched in that system, but need to have a way to accept payments right next to it. There are terminals all over the world that are bolted right next to a very sophisticated, specialized point of sale system, and now we can unlock that.
What were the biggest challenges building this hardware?
Well, we try to make it a really great experience. So integrating hardware and software in a small package. This has a 5.5-inch color display, accepts NFC, has a built-in battery, works on Wi-Fi, has a built-in thermal printer. So you're really looking at something that doesn't want to be small and sleek and easy to pick up. It's really easy to scoop it up and walk around the store. So it's a lot of great consumer electronics design and making sure we can appeal to people's consumer aesthetic, not the calculator from 1985 that they're forced to use.
Speaking of the Square executive team, there are always questions about Jack Dorsey's role. We've seen him testify on behalf of Twitter before U.S. Congress. We've got the elections coming up, which is also a big time for Twitter, obviously.
That's right.
How present is he?
He's great. He's always there. I met with him today. He's put together a really strong bench of people. I love working with them all. He also is asked to be judged by his results. And in Q2, we put up our 5th quarter in a row of revenue expansion. And I really feel good about our momentum, especially with new product launches.
That was our interview with Square's Jesse Duragusker. Well, Apple is expected to unveil new iPads and Mac computers at an event in New York, October 30th. Bloomberg reported earlier that Apple is planning the largest revamp to the iPad Pro since it first went on sale in 2015. Plus, there will be a lower-cost MacBook laptop and a new Mac Mini desktop. Here to discuss, Bloomberg Tech executive editor Tom Giles. So what do we know about this event on the back of the smartphone event?
That's right. Lots of new products in time for the holidays. This is the crucial selling season for Apple, as we all know. New York, an unusual venue. It's been a few years since they have announced anything there. Don't often announce stuff outside of Cupertino, California, or San Francisco. They did have one education-related event in Chicago earlier this year. So they are branching out somewhat, but it's still not a regular occurrence. iPad, they're going to bring some of the features of the iPhone X, edge-to-edge screen, Face ID, for example, to the iPad line, bring some more excitement to that. As you know, iPad was a really great seller right out the gate, but it's since been kind of cannibalized by some of the more recent products like the iPhone.
And that event in Chicago where they unveiled this education software, that software is in part going to power sales of the iPad, Apple hopes. I mean, Apple has really also pitched this as a device for education, pushed it into schools as well.
Right, yeah. I mean, in schools, it is an area where Apple really dominated for a long time, but lately you've seen schools kind of getting into the Chromebook, for example.
Well, they're cheap.
They are. They're a lot less expensive. My kid uses one at her elementary school, so it's definitely an alternative to Apple in the classroom, so they needed that. As far as the new Macs are concerned, you're going to see a new MacBook Pro aimed at the professional. You're going to see that the new MacBook to replace the MacBook Air.
And we just saw an announcement that Wedbush is initiating coverage of Apple. Dan Ives has moved over there, putting a $1.5 trillion target on Apple and saying it's not the devices that are going to power this, it's the services business.
Yeah, they really are buying this story, the Apple story about the big push into services, making that a multi-tens of billions of dollars in revenue. And you've seen Apple really go after that aggressively with its push deeper and deeper into music, video, entertainment. They really do want to be a services company as well as a hardware company.
And of course, the devices make it possible for them to push these services to consumers.
That's right, and they're all interconnected. They all get us addicted. You're using the iPhone, you're using the watch, you're using the MacBook, the iPad, all of them. They all work together.
Tom Giles, our executive editor. Thanks so much. And that does it for this edition of Bloomberg Technology. Make sure to tune in tomorrow. We will have Congressman Ro Khanna, who will break down what goes into his proposed Internet Bill of Rights. I'm Emily Chang from San Francisco. This is Bloomberg.